Okay, this is all about ACT reading. In the video you watched, it talked about finding the main idea, finding the author's purpose and attitude, and then briefly annotating the passage. These two are what I like to focus on, specifically briefly annotating. I even prefer less annotation than what she showed, but I'm going to show you how I annotate a passage. And this really helps me a lot in reading and in answering the questions. So first, I don't believe in underlining anything more than 2 to 3 words, because the more you underline, the more time it takes. Making marks on a paper takes time. And you only get about 9 minutes to answer a passage and to read a passage and answer 10 questions in 9 minutes. That's a lot of stuff you have to do. So, however, you still need to annotate. If you don't annotate, you'll waste a lot of time reading because you'll forget where stuff is. So what I do is a couple things. First, I'll do a little bullet point if I think it's important. I'll do a star if I think it's super important. I'll do like a question mark if I have a question about it. And then I will underline a word or two here or there that I think it's the main word. Now, what to underline or what to annotate, that is completely up to you. Really, my best advice is go by your gut instinct. If you want something to think about, try to figure out what the main idea is. And then maybe think about what you think the author's purpose and attitude is, but focus in on the main idea. So I'm going to start reading. The meter of my childhood was the rising and plunging of a sewing machine needle, rapid and smooth, like an endless, distant drum. My mother hummed as she sewed. She guided the fabric this way and that. In 1938, she had graduated from a school of costume design. And before World War II, she had her own boutique in Los Angeles. It was a time when the dream of America never seemed finer. So, maybe that. The Albany of my childhood was a festive place, closer in spirit to the 19th century than to the 21st. So I'm just going to put a little dot right there, because, I don't know, 19th century might be important. Italian pushcart grocers crowded southern city blocks, crafting tiered architectural wonders from fresh produce and pungent sausage. Heavy-legged workhorses clopped along cobblestones, delivering bread from German bakeries and milk from Dutch dairies. A cable car ran along streets named for trees. Each year in early April, that feels like an important date change, an annual dinner dance was sponsored by the Pharmaceutical Institute where my father worked as a researcher. A ballroom was rented in a downtown hotel. Musicians were hired to play big band music. The dinner dance was the only time when my mother would sew for herself. It was the one time when my parents went out alone together. I was a romantic child, dreamy and diffuse. Don't know what that is, so I'm going to put a question mark. For me, the dinner dance was an annual event, looked forward to in long anticipation and back upon with nostalgia. I feel like the dinner dance is important because it's been talked about a lot, you know? Each year, on a snowy weekday evening, Father would take us window shopping. The deserted downtown streets would be a magical glaze of snow-softened lights and shadowy shop displays. My mother would linger in front of the mannequins, clad in evening apparel. I would follow along, drunk with wonder. I don't know if that's important. Each year before the tape had desiccated on the backs of the New Year's cards, and they had fallen to the floor. I don't know why that's important. Desiccated? My mother would have decided on the design for her dinner dance dress. Then there would be a trip to the fabric store. I would run my hands along graduated rainbows of thread spools. I would watch their changing hues as they shimmered in the light. As the dress took form, my parents would practice dancing. Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, Father would mutter with determination as he trod unmincingly on Oka-chan's feet and guided her into the waltz. Next, lady, he gallantly would inquire. My sister Misa and I would take turns balancing on the tops of his shoes as father swept us around the room. I always thought that the dinner dance eve had some of the magic of Christmas. That feels important. Every year I would perch on the bathtub's edge. I would watch my father fix his tie. See the nice dimple below the knot? Father would turn from the mirror and bend to show me. The dimple is very important. I solemnly would nod, the honored recipient of this arcane cultural wisdom. He says the dimple is important. Who knows? Back in the bedroom, Oka-chan would slide into her new dress. She would glance at her reflection with modest pleasure. When she moved, I would catch the sweet scent of face powder. When I was 7 or 8, the window shopping and the dinner dances stopped. That feels important. The granite facades and downtown stores were grimy with graffiti. Display windows were boarded with plywood. The elegant hotels had fallen into disrepair. No one danced to big band music anymore. That feels like a turning point, so I'm putting it in a bracket. As I grew older, my mother began to sew for wealthy women. The women lived in country homes where sunlight reflected from swimming pools just beyond French doors, played across fine wood floors. Once after luncheon in the city, a woman came to our house for a fitting. Standing erect in the doorway, then bowing slightly, my mother met her formally. "Won't you please come in? May I please take your coat? Here you go. Try to put it somewhere clean." Like an eagle, her words slipped regally down a great distance and struck with awful ease. I feel like that might be important. Don't know why. After the fitting, my father was ashamed and angry. "Actually, I do not like this work," he stormed. "You do not have to do this. We do not need this kind of money." He waved his arms dismissively at Oka-chan's sewing machine. "They come and look at our home with content. You kneel at their hems like a servant. Mo dame desu yo. It is not good, I tell you." I feel like that's an important rant. Oka-chan was intractable. Eloquent in anger, she blazed over the pronunciation of words that ordinarily would have left pondering pauses in her speech. "I do not care what they think of me." I feel like this is important, so I'm breaking my rule and highlighting more than 3 to 5 words. "They cannot affect our value." My mother stepped in front of her sewing machine as if to shield it from scorn. "My work gives me happiness." She squarely faced my father. "I do not care if you speak as husband," she said. "I am a designer." I feel like that is really important. So now that I've done my annotating, I'm going to go through and look at a couple questions and show you how my answers to the questions connect back to my annotation. As it is described in the passage, sewing seems mostly closely associated in the narrator's mind with her mother's self-worth. And I'm putting self-worth because right here, she's very emphatic about being a designer. So when you answer reading passage questions, you always want to make sure you're clear about how they connect. It is reasonable to infer from the passage that the narrator looks back on the dinner dances as a time when her parents were in conflict over her mother's work. No, they liked the dinner dances. The entire family was filled with excitement and anticipation. Yeah. She and her father had a much easier relationship with each other. No, they never really had a hard relationship. Her mother and father had renewed hope for the future of the family. No, their family wasn't desperate when they had the dinner dances. It is reasonable to infer that the primary reason the author included the information in the 11th paragraph, lines 59 through 64, is to... So 59 through 64 starts right here. Is this information, this paragraph. Contrast it with the earlier description of the family looking at shop displays on a snowy evening. Possibly. Support information about the trip to a fabric store? No. Compare it with the scene where the father dances with his wife and daughters? No, because this is talking about downtown stores and window shopping, so it's definitely this one, I think. Or, and it's not talking about dancing. Contrast it with the scene presented in the last 2 paragraphs. Line 78. No, because the last 2 paragraphs is the argument between her mother and father. 24. The primary focus of lines 65 through 92 is the relationship between the narrator and her mother. 65 through 92. No, the primary focus is probably this. Oka-chan's strength and integrity? Maybe. The narrator father's stubbornness? Yes, it's mentioned, but I don't think that that's the focus. Because she doesn't talk about it a lot. She only talks about it in order to emphasize G. Oka-chan's strength and integrity. Okay, last one I'm going to do. When the narrator says, I solemnly would nod, the honored recipient of this arcane cultural wisdom, lines 53 through 54, she most likely means that solemnly would nod, the honored recipient of this arcane cultural wisdom. She most likely means that. Oh, so he's talking about the nod. She felt intimidated? No, she loved her father. Her father was honored. When her father put on his tie, she pretended to be honored even though she thought his comment was silly. The information her father was giving her seemed important and made her feel valued. Yes, that's why she nods solemnly, is because she likes the interaction with her father. And I see that because the father would turn from the mirror and bend to show me. The dimple is very important. It's because she loves her father. Comes out in the tone. Okay, so I hope that helped. I hope the annotation helped. It's always good to have as much practice as you can. And thanks for watching.